Emma, a 22-year-old girl with big dreams, was behind the counter, expertly preparing drinks for customers. She had always been a hardworking soul, pouring her energy into every task, whether it was waiting tables or managing orders. But despite her best efforts, life had never given her a break. The odds seemed stacked against her, and with each passing day, it felt as though her aspirations were slipping further out of reach. Emma's family had struggled for as long as she could remember. Her parents worked long hours, barely making enough to keep the bills paid. Still, Emma remained hopeful, determined that one day she would make a difference. She wasn't one to sit quietly and accept her circumstances. She worked every shift she could, hoping for an opportunity to prove herself. One afternoon, as Emma was serving coffee to a group of regulars, the door of the cafe swung open with a quiet jingle. The room went silent for a moment as Elon Musk, the powerful CEO of SpaceX and Tesla, walked in. He was dressed casually but still managed to carry an air of authority that turned heads. His presence was undeniable. He had just flown in from one of his many business meetings, and as he strolled in, his associates followed closely behind. Emma's eyes widened in surprise. She had heard of Elon Musk, of course, and admired his achievements from afar. He was a visionary, a man whose name was synonymous with innovation and success. But she was also painfully aware of the stark differences between their worlds. Elon Musk's fame and fortune were built on a foundation of monumental achievements, while Emma's world felt confined to the walls of this small cafe, struggling to make ends meet. As Emma approached him to take his order, she overheard a conversation between Elon and one of his associates. Their words carried through the air as Elon dismissed the challenges faced by smaller businesses. "These mom-and-pop shops will never make it," Elon said with a tone of finality. "Without the right connections, without the resources, they're destined to fail." Emma felt a sharp pang in her chest. She had heard those words before, whispered by others who believed that success was reserved for the few who had money, power, and influence. But Emma wasn't the kind of person to let comments like that slide. This time, she couldn't just stand by and accept it. She took a deep breath and walked over to the table where Elon was sitting, her heart pounding in her chest. As she approached, she heard him laugh lightly, unaware that the young girl in front of him was about to challenge him in a way he would never forget. "Excuse me, Mr. Musk," Emma said, her voice steady but full of determination. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, and I have to say I disagree. Small businesses like mine don't need connections or resources. What they need is heart, passion, and people who believe in them." Elon looked up, surprised by the boldness in her voice. The cafe grew quiet as others noticed the exchange. Emma wasn't sure what she was about to say, but she knew one thing. She couldn't let this moment slip by. The room remained quiet, all eyes on Emma as she stood there, challenging one of the most powerful men in the world. Elon Musk's eyebrows arched in surprise, a hint of amusement in his eyes. He wasn't used to being confronted in such a direct way, especially not in public. The silence that hung in the air felt heavy, as if the entire cafe was holding its breath, waiting to see how this unexpected confrontation would play out. Emma, heart racing, continued. "You may have the resources, Mr. Musk, but you can't tell me that all it takes to succeed is money or connections. There are people, real people, who are out there busting their tails every day to keep their businesses alive, to provide for their families. What they have is something money can't buy. It's the will to keep going, no matter the odds." Elon leaned back in his chair, intrigued. He had built his empire through sheer innovation, relentless work, and a sharp mind. He understood the value of hard work, but his world was different. He had resources, influence, and networks that others could only dream of. "You're saying that small businesses can just thrive on determination alone?" Elon asked, his tone skeptical. "The world doesn't work that way. You need more than just passion to succeed." Emma's eyes flared with conviction. She had heard this line of thinking before, from wealthy business owners, investors, and even from people in her own life. But today, something inside her snapped. She was tired of hearing that success was only for the privileged few. You think the world works only for the powerful? She replied, her voice unwavering. Tell that to the single mother who works 2 jobs just to keep food on the table, or the small-town mechanic who spends his nights fixing cars to pay his rent. They don't have billions, but they're surviving, building something real, and it matters. The words struck a chord, not just with Elon, but with the people around them. Several customers at nearby tables began to nod in agreement, quietly listening in. A few even pulled out their phones, snapping pictures of the heated exchange. Emma's courage was now infectious, spreading to those around her. Elon, who had spent most of his career surrounded by powerful figures in the tech and space industries, was now confronted with a perspective he hadn't considered. I get that, he said, his tone softer now. But how do you expect people to break through without the support to back them up, without the right connections? Emma took a deep breath, her hands shaking slightly as she leaned against the table. It's not about who you know. It's about what you can do with what you've got. You don't need connections if you have the right mindset. If you believe in yourself and your cause, that's when you can make an impact. And sometimes it's the people who've been knocked down the most who have the most to offer. A tense silence filled the cafe as Emma's words hung in the air. She could feel the weight of the moment, and for a second she wondered if she'd gone too far. But then she saw it, the subtle shift in Elon's expression. He wasn't dismissing her anymore. He was listening. "What's your name?" Elon asked, his voice no longer dismissive but genuinely curious. "Emma," she replied, her voice steady despite the nerves that threatened to bubble up. "Well, Emma," Elon said, leaning forward with a newfound respect. "Maybe I've underestimated the power of people like you, but do you really think that a single person can change the course of things without the right resources to back them up?" Emma smiled, her confidence growing with every word she spoke. "I think it's the small things that spark big changes. One voice, one act of courage, it all adds up. And no, it doesn't take billions. It takes people who care enough to stand up and do something about it." The conversation between them began to shift from confrontation to dialogue. Elon, who had once brushed aside the struggles of everyday people, was now intrigued by Emma's words. And the cafe, once a quiet space for customers to sip their drinks, had become a battleground for ideas. People who had been quietly observing the exchange began to speak up, sharing their own stories of struggle and resilience. Word of the incident spread quickly, and within hours, social media was buzzing with posts, videos, and hashtags supporting Emma's message. The bold confrontation between a young girl and one of the world's most influential CEOs became a symbol of defiance, and people across the globe began to rally behind her. Emma didn't expect the viral wave that followed. She was just a girl who wanted to be heard. But as the days passed, the messages of support flooded in. People who had once felt voiceless were now finding their strength in Emma's words. She was becoming the face of something bigger, something that transcended the cafe, or even the conversation she'd had with Elon Musk. Elon, meanwhile, found himself reflecting on the exchange. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that perhaps Emma was right. Maybe change didn't always have to come from the top down. Maybe it was time to rethink how he used his influence. As the days passed, the world saw a change. Emma's bold words continued to resonate with people everywhere, from small business owners to everyday workers. Her story became an inspiration to many who had once believed that success was only for the powerful. What began as a conversation in a quiet cafe had evolved into a movement, a wave of empowerment for those who had been overlooked for too long. The support that poured in from all corners of the world was overwhelming. Social media platforms were flooded with messages of encouragement, and soon, news outlets picked up the story. Emma became the face of a new kind of activism, a movement not just about standing up to the powerful, but about showing the world that the most powerful thing of all was a person's will to fight for what they believed in. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, who had once dismissed the potential of small businesses, had found himself deeply impacted by the conversation he had with Emma. In the days that followed, he publicly acknowledged the importance of giving people like Emma a voice. He shared his thoughts on social media, expressing his newfound appreciation for the struggles of everyday people and the need to support small businesses. "Emma showed me something I hadn't seen before," he wrote. The real changemakers aren't always at the top of the ladder. They're the ones who keep going when it seems impossible. Inspired by Emma's courage, Elon took steps to help small businesses gain more recognition. He partnered with a network of entrepreneurs to create an initiative that would provide resources and mentorship to those who lacked the connections and capital that larger businesses enjoyed. The project aimed to level the playing field, giving people with passion and determination the opportunity to thrive. As for Emma, her life changed in ways she could never have imagined. She became a spokesperson for the movement, traveling the country to speak at rallies and conferences, sharing her message of hope, resilience, and the power of one person to make a difference. Emma's story inspired countless others to step up and challenge the systems that had held them back for so long. At one of her rallies, she stood before a crowd of thousands, her voice strong and clear as she shared her journey. "I was just a girl working in a cafe, but I stood up for what I believed in," she said, looking out over the sea of faces. "I want you all to remember this. You don't need to be famous. You don't need billions. You just need to care. You need to believe that you can make a difference." The crowd erupted in applause, and Emma knew in that moment that this was just the beginning. The movement she had sparked wasn't just about standing up to the powerful. It was about empowering everyone to believe that their voice mattered, that their actions could create real change. Emma's story had become a testament to the idea that anyone, no matter how small or unheard, could spark a movement. And the world was beginning to listen. If Emma's story resonated with you, don't stay silent. Stand up for what you believe in, even if the odds are stacked against you. Share this story with your friends and family, and let them know that one voice can change the world. If you have a passion, a dream, or a cause you care about, now is the time to take action. Together, we can create a world where everyone has the opportunity to succeed, no matter where they come from. Start today. Your voice matters.